think we could start with speaking about how these divine feminine, divine masculine express themselves through astrology as an example. That would be a great start, I think. What do you think?
I think that would be beautiful because, again, a lot of the content on my show covers the polarities, especially some of the earlier episodes when I was establishing the mission of the show. But to really have the tweak of it to get into how that relates to astrology, I think would be beautiful for you to share with us about that. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about that?
Well, in what's amazing about astrology, and it's part of why I love it so much, is that there's so many different layers to how we can approach astrology. And of course, when we first begin astrology, it looks like learning about our personality, how we interact with others, how we think, how we feel, how we maybe act, etc. But when we go a little bit beyond that, we begin seeing some common traits and cycles and trends that speak to us about our psyche, about our internal makeup. This is a guidebook or a roadmap, if you want, to our soul's purpose and unraveling in a way. It's how we are meant to express ourselves the best way we can, because everyone is different and everyone has a unique way of doing so. And in astrology, what's really interesting is that there is feminine and masculine planets. Of course, it is not gender bias, it's not based on gender at all. There's nothing gender biased about astrology, but it is linked with the elements, and some planets and some signs are going to be more feminine in their nature, and others are going to be more masculine. And in astrology, and just like other alchemical or magical traditions, the masculine is the active force. These are the air and fire signs. Maybe they're going to take more actions, they're going to be more outgoing, more expressive in their nature. And then we have the feminine. The feminine signs and planets are more introspective. This is the water signs, the earth signs, and some planets, of course, who correlate with this idea of receiving, of nurturing, of taking care of. And when we begin looking at these modalities, these elements in astrology in this manner, we can see how in our birth chart there are some pointers or indicators that tell us how we express our conscious or divine masculine. I'm going to say this word a lot today, but this is a way for us to express it. And not everyone has the same way of being active in life, just like not everyone receives in the same way. So one of the great starts, because of course there's so many different layers to this, one of the amazing example of this would be the sun and the moon, because the sun and the moon, well, they're present in all cultures, in all religions or traditions. Wherever we go, there's the sun and there's the moon. And it is really a beautiful, beautiful way to begin understanding this polarity, this dance of the divine feminine and masculine within us, and of course outside.
Yes, I think that's very interesting, and something that I've studied, because I've been deeply studying about the moon in particular, is that I didn't realize that although most cultures have always associated the moon with the feminine, some didn't. Some associated the sun with the feminine. And I thought that was just really interesting. But is it safe to say, Fatima, that the majority, like 90% of ancient cultures, thought of the moon as the feminine?
I would say yes,
Yeah,
95%.
95.
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe around I think that too, yes.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about their particular unique traits. Like what makes the sun considered by people to be a symbol of the masculine, and the moon in particular to be a symbol of the feminine?
Well, that's an interesting question. In astrology, the sun is not necessarily the masculine, but it is a masculine. And
Okay.
the way it is a masculine is because the sun speaks to us about our conscious mind. This is what we strive to become. This is the message we come with. This is our core, our identity, our sense of self. So it is active on its own, because when you are trying to learn who you are, trying to express your uniqueness, your creativity, it has to happen by doing things, by running after an ideal, a message, a desire, a purpose. And the moon, on the other hand, is our divine nurturer. This is who we are behind closed doors. This is an energy that we do not have to really work towards. This is something that usually happens. Of course, there is mitigating factors in astrology, but in general, the moon is that energy in which we are naturally comfortable, that comes instinctively, because it is linked with this unconscious. This is our unconscious, our way of receiving, of nurturing, and taking care of things. And of course, in astrology, the sun and the moon can also talk to us or represent our mother and our father. So the moon can relate physically, like this can be literally our mother, and the sun can sometimes, speak to us about our father or father figure, of course, for people who don't have direct biological parents. So that's a really interesting meaning, I would say, because it makes overall sense with why people saw the moon or saw the sun as feminine or masculine. Of course, there's other reasons. The moon is linked with water, so the tides are ruled by the moon, and plants, things that grow, life is linked with the idea of motherhood. And females, not females, women all around the world have their menstrual cycle usually synced with the moon's phases. So that's part of why the moon was always considered as feminine in 90% of the world. And in astrology, it's a really beautiful thing to look up to, because sometimes there's um, a misunderstanding of the messages of our innate sun and moon. And that's something that, as an astrologer, I see a little bit, not just a little bit, I see a lot of people, especially women, struggle with how they can actually make these two parts of themselves work together, especially if they are not speaking the same language, if they're not in the same sign. And yeah, that's something that absolutely fascinates me, is how we can link these two parts of us, our father and our mother, not just our real father and mother, but our inner father and mother, and make them create some magic, dance, and do crazy stuff.
Yes, and that they have that important reciprocal relationship that's collaborative, I think is important.